Everyone. This is author R. Weir. I think I set Kathleen the wrong link, so she's just now connecting. So we're starting a little late. So I'm going to bring her right up here.
Hey.
Oh,
How are you tonight?
good. I think I may have copy pasted and not corrected from my
No
previous
worries.
one.
No problem. I suddenly realized I thought maybe I better email him real quick. So, but thank you
Yeah,
for
that
having
was
me on tonight.
the last show. Yeah, the previous with Tony. So anyway, well, welcome. I get a chance to talk to you ahead of time. Do you have any time
Yeah.
restrictions tonight?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Nope.
We
We
usually
are
go.
good.
We've been going a little more than an hour lately once we start talking, but I try not to get too much more than an hour and 20 minutes or so. Because we do all have lives, I think. So, but thanks for being on, coming from northern Colorado.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. And it was fun. I was telling my husband tonight, seeing your BoucherCon shirt, that it took us going to Nashville for two Coloradoans to meet.
I didn't know you, and you didn't know me, and
Nope.
two ships in the night, as they say. But yeah, we like, and I've done plenty of events up in that area at times, and we just never crossed paths. It would seem so. And
Exactly.
quite a few authors that I know. It sounded like too, because Margaret, which I've
Of course.
known Margaret for several years as well. Not well, but I knew her. I think you know her better than I do. But we met at a library here in Westminster like 4 or 5 years ago when she was still living here
Oh,
in
cool.
Colorado, and then we ran into her at BoucherCon too. So anyway, but thanks for being on. How are things going in your neck of the woods?
They're going well. It's
Yeah.
a nice cool day up here, and uh, it hasn't snowed here yet. Are you getting snow down where you live?
No, it it fizzled out. I mean, we better get some weather here quicker. We're gonna have another one of those bad fires like we had a few years ago, and that one was a
Yeah,
little closer to home than I cared for. And of course, you had some
exactly.
up north there, uh, west of Loveland that was really bad. Was that this year?
That was, yeah. We kind of lived right in between two of them. The Alexander Mountain Fire was north of us, and the Stone Canyon Fire was south of us. And at one point, my husband and I looked out the window, and we could literally see the plane flying in, dropping the fire retardant. I mean, when you're close enough to actually see the retardant being dropped, it's a little close for comfort.
Yeah. Were you ever at any point where you were in evacuation area, possibly?
We weren't. It did get a little bit close here and there, and we were ready to go. We actually had things packed. I have a horse, so we had the horse trailer hooked up. We had dog crates ready, and we were ready to go. But thank goodness we never had to. It was all up to the wind in which direction it blew. So.
And so you live on a farm, a ranch. You got a horse, so you must have a little bit of acreage.
We do. We live up north here. We have a little bit of acreage, and we were really lucky to find this property, and so we're living. We love it. It's beautiful. We're kind of near the foothills, and we just absolutely love it. So I'm lucky to walk out the door and have my horse right there, and the dogs are lucky to have room to run, and we go out for a walk, and so it's a great life. I can't complain.
Yeah, so we definitely want to talk about your dogs because you were a trainer for canines for I don't know how many years it was, but and I have I love dogs. We've always been we always rescue dogs. We look like
Cool.
we're like if there's a rescue there, we'll take it. And when we lose a dog, it's like time for another. We have two right now, and my she's got one, and she rescued it, and all that, and the training aspect is for us is a challenge
Yes.
with rescues, and they'll have their different things. But so how did you get into the whole canine training aspect?
It was kind of a roundabout way. It wasn't nothing about my career path has been normal. I went to CSU and had a degree or earned a degree in journalism. Decided that wasn't what I wanted to do, and I'd grown up riding horses and training horses. And so when I graduated from CSU, I thought, well, I'm going to train some horses for a while until I figure out what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up being, oh my gosh, like 5 or 6 years of horse training. And along the way, a friend of mine started a private drug dog business. And she and I went out to lunch one day and she said, you know what? We really need another handler. And we need someone who can read body language. And with the horse training background, I mean, a lot of the training with any of the animals is just reading their body language. And so she said, I know you would pick it up really quick. What do you think? You want to give it a try? And I was like, sure, that sounds like fun. I could do that for a little bit. 19 years later, I've worked probably over 12 dogs. I became co-owner of the company, and the horses, the horse training, I shouldn't say horses, but the horse training kind of faded out, and the canine work really took over, and I've really enjoyed it. And so most of my training was in narcotics detection. It was fun when we would go work with our trainer. He did a little bit with us with tracking and apprehension, but I never had a dog who did any of those things. Our dogs were also rescues, so I love rescues.
Yeah.
They're great, and we found that the type of dog we needed was usually in a rescue because we look for really high energy, high retrieve drive, and they don't make good pets. So, in fact, the two I have right now are they're retired technically, but they still have that drive and they still get excited. And I'm always like, okay, we can settle down now. I put some presents under our Christmas tree, and my black lab Boomer decided he had to go over and check them all, make sure I didn't wrap up any drugs. So the Christmas tree is drug free. So we're good.
Do you unwrap the presents too? Because we have to keep ours up high, or our pit bull will. She likes to grab things out of purses. I mean, you can't leave anything within reach of her. She has all her toys too. So, she gets her toys, but if there's something there that, this looks a lot like a toy.
That's exactly. Yeah. I ended up actually taking a few of the presents and putting them back up on the table today. Because they will get into them. So, and I can't blame them for, their whole life. We trained them to get into things, to find things. So it's not fair to suddenly change the rules on them.
Yeah. So you said high energy dogs. Was there any certain breeds that you look for as well that make better canine type dogs? I mean, German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois are, what a lot of police forces have used and the military and stuff. But I saw on your website you had some, even a small dog there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we worked mainly in schools. And so we looked for non-intimidating dogs versus the police dogs, like the Malinois and the German Shepherds, which you want intimidation, right? When you're chasing a suspect, you need that dog to be intimidating. For us, because we were actually working in, when I say with the kids, we would be visible. If we were actually checking things, we would do, maybe have the kids leave the classroom or something like that for confidentiality. But we wanted dogs who could be in with the kids and could be petted and that the kids could enjoy. So mainly over the years, we've had labs. And in fact, right now, the two I have that are retired are Boomer and Willow, and they're a black lab and a yellow lab. And if you follow me on Facebook, you guys will probably see that's Boomer. That's Boomer right there. He and I were getting to know each other, and we were just training, and he's a passive alert dog. So he sits, and he had alerted on a locker there, and it was the correct one. So he's getting his toy. So the little terrier, and that's Willow. Yes. Yeah. She's just such a good girl. She was all business. She would crack me up. She would go into a school and be like, you talk to the paw because I'm here to work. So she's very friendly, but she's all business. And then the little guy, Sparky, that you saw, he's in
this picture, right? Is that him there?
He is. That is. He was probably about 15 or 16 years old there. And I called him my undercover agent. He was one of the best dogs I ever worked. He would just come in, and he loved the kids, but he would find everything. I mean, if someone had something, he wasn't going to miss it. And so, yeah, he was a lot of fun to work. And that other lab there on, it's my right in the picture, I guess our left looking at it, is Gracie. She was, talk about high energy. She was very, very high energy. So unfortunately, Sparky and Gracie have crossed the Rainbow Bridge, but that's Boomer and Willow in the picture there, and they're still with me. I missed that crew. That was a wild crew, those 4 dogs together. So, and the terrier ran everything. He was in charge of everything. So.
Well, he looks like he's in charge there. I mean, they're all gazing at whoever's taking the picture. I'm assuming maybe there's someone's holding like a nice bone treat or something for them to like, ooh, we're gonna sit here. But they're all focused very firmly on something there.
Yeah, that was actually, we have a really good family friend who's an amazing photographer, Piper Wooster. She took those pictures, and my mother-in-law was running around behind her with a squeaky toy. And so Piper took that picture really quick because they didn't stay there very long. So that was one moment.
Getting 4 dogs to stay at one time in the picture, that's pretty tough. We have 2, and getting them both together without just having a firm grip on them, and they're really strong too, is really tough to get a picture.
It is. It really is.
If they're asleep, that's when sometimes the pictures, I have several pictures of them asleep at times, but those don't make quite as good. I mean, they're cute pictures, but they're not as good for beyond that.
Exactly.
So you train horses and you train dogs. So how are they similar in training? You talked a little bit about that, but how are they different training? Obviously, the treats are different and how you're doing it, but I mean, is it very similar or is there a lot of differences?
There's some similarities and some differences. I'd say the biggest difference that you have to keep in mind, depending on which animal you're working with, is horses are prey animals. So they're going to have that flight instinct. So any animal with the eyes on the side of their head, deer, horses, elk, all that those kind of animals, they are prey animals, whereas dogs are predators. So, and we are technically too, our eyes are on the front of our head. So, if you look at dogs and cats, there's the predator. So the biggest difference is the horses will often have a very high flight instinct. For that survival instinct. The dogs have that predator instinct, and we use that predator instinct for training, in that things like a squeaky toy might bring up that drive, bring up the adrenaline, because for lack of a better way to put it, it's sort of like they've killed an animal and it's squeaking. So we use those squeaky toys to encourage that drive to come up as a reward. And whereas with the horses, we're always working on trying to help them get used to and understand that they can trust us, that, when we're sitting on their back, it's not like a predator. Is it a human? Is it a mountain lion? They don't always know. So there's a lot of work that goes into gaining that trust and getting them used to that. And it very much goes against their instincts when you stop and think about it. So, but I'd say all the animals, the similarities are they all love to please. They all love to go out there and work and do different things. They all have their own personalities. And I think that's what's fun about training, is you get to know each animal on an individual basis. And you get to know their quirks, and you get to work with it, and you get to figure it out. And it keeps you challenged, and no day is ever the same. And you're just constantly trying to, like, how can I help this dog work better? Or why is the horse afraid of this area? And how can I help them gain trust in a way that's going to be, help them build confidence. So, and I think that's another similarity when you're training an animal, you want them to build confidence so that the dogs know that when they go out and work, that they're going to find something, and that it's worth it for them to go out and do that work for you. And for the horses, that they trust you in a situation that might be really scary to them. So when people see horses like in a parade, we have like the stock show parade coming up next month. That's actually a very difficult environment. And those horses have a lot of training, and they've gone through a lot to trust their riders to go do an event like that. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm sure they can be easily spooked too in big crowds like that as well.
Mhm.
Some idiot setting off a firework or something silly, that
Yeah,
can startle the animals. So you feel like
exactly.
it's a constant train. You're constantly having to train, even though you get to a certain point, you feel confident in, but you still have to reinforce. I'm assuming
Mhm.
with all the animals.
You do. You do. I mean, with any of them, with the dogs, when we were working full time, we trained every day. So if we went out and worked, sometimes I would still hide something before we went into school or after we went into school. If it was the weekend and we weren't working, I would hide things around our property, which is why Boomer, excuse me, and which is why Boomer thinks that maybe under the Christmas tree I've hidden something. he hasn't quite gotten
Those
the memo.
memories stick with them, don't they? Yeah.
They do. They really do. With the horses, you're always, every time you ride them, you're training them, you're working with them, you're developing that bond and that trust, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't always have the patience to do it with the dogs. Sometimes it's like, our dogs, they want out, then they want in, they want out, and they want in all the time, depending on the weather and stuff. If it's a nice day, they like to stay out, but it's a little bit cold. So, what dogs do you have at home now? Is it two of the dogs there, or do you have some different dogs that you have living with you at home now?
No, I just have Boomer and Willow, the yellow lab and the
Yeah,
black lab.
those
So
two.
they're the only two, and they're keeping me on my toes.
Yeah,
um, like I said, since they're not working anymore, I have to get their energy out in a different way. So we go for walks, and which is really nice because you're writing and you write like 1,000 words, and then you're ready for a little break, and they're happy to go on a walk. There's Kongs all over the house. we call it the booby trapped house because they'll go and get their Kongs and then leave them. You have to watch where you step. I bet your dogs are the same way.
yeah. We
So,
have hard bones. Yes, and in the middle of the night, if there's one there, you're going to step on it. Yeah, I'm always
yeah,
worried about rolling an ankle. And my
yeah.
wife is lucky enough; she's rolled her ankles a few times on other things. Like I keep having visions of her breaking her ankle one day, or
Oh no.
there. And we have lots of, you know, killed to the end of time stuffed animals with stuffing everywhere. We're
Yes,
picking up as well. So
yes, yes.
they love those, and we have to get the little squeakers out of them so they don't swallow them as well. Because Nuka, at least the pit bull, she grabs one of those toys and she tries to break it, and she's caught a couple of rabbits before. And I'm sure you have wildlife running loose. Have you had your
Mhm.
dogs, chasing squirrels, obviously, or I don't know if you have any coyotes around? I mean, coyotes are pretty prevalent in Colorado. Foxes.
We do. We've had a coyote right outside the yard, and I had just turned out my little terrier. So, and then I saw the coyote standing there, and I thought, oh, this isn't good. So,
Hmm.
if the neighbors had seen me, I'm sure they're like, oh, there's our strange neighbor. I was still in my pajamas, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna run at it because they're really not.
No.
It might try to go after my little dog, but it's not going to do anything to me. And I had to laugh because I went running out and I was like, hey, get away. And it looked at me like, you are the strangest person ever. And then it trotted off. So that's probably the closest wildlife we've had, or he came in the closest. We have lots of interesting wildlife. We have foxes, and they keep their distance. And we've had some deer and some elk come through. We had bobcats that migrated through for a while.
Sure.
Really cool creatures. And I remember that I went out to check my horse. I do a final night check before I go to bed, and I heard the weirdest noise, and my horse was snorting. Like I said, they're prey animals, so she was snorting and running around and spooking. And I thought that is really an odd noise. Well, it turns out they were chirping. And if you want to hear the noise, if anyone Googles bobcat chirp and then hit play, you can hear the noise. It's really different from like a normal cat noise. And I guess mates will chirp to each other. So that's what they were doing. We've even had black bears. We've had a couple black bears come through. We have to watch things like our garbage. I take the bird feeders in at night, that kind of stuff. We had a mama black bear and her 2 cubs up in a tree not too far from us. And it was fun to see them from a distance, but obviously you have to respect them. And rumor has it there's a mountain lion, but I should knock on wood. Maybe here I'll knock on wood. Yeah. I've never seen signs of him, at least him or her, coming through our property. But there is a ravine about a half mile away from us that supposedly it hangs out down there, which would make sense. So yeah, we do have a lot of wildlife, and I do keep an eye out when I have the dogs out in the yard. But now that I don't have the little dog, I feel better. We also have bald eagles and great horned owls. And so when I had my little terrier, I was always worried about him. He never was left out in the yard by himself.
Do you have a lot of trees on the property?
Not a lot. We actually had to plant quite a few. It's sort of the area of the foothills where it flattens out and there's not a lot of natural trees, but we did plant some as a windbreak. So yeah.
Yeah, the house we bought here in Westminster, the owners had it before. They had a tree in the front yard and they cut it down eventually. But it was always, the neighbors across from us told us that it would always be full of raccoons. The raccoons would live up in the trees. Yeah. And now they live in the storm drain that's in front of our house. And we've had them even in our attic. Once we had one get up in the attic.
Oh, no.
Had to spook him out of there and put some better coverings on the attic. So we couldn't get in because, they're kind of nasty and they got very sharp.
They do.
And stuff. So yeah, you don't want your dogs running into raccoons either. So
no, luckily we've never seen a raccoon out where we live, but I'm sure they're around. There's some neighborhoods north of us. I would imagine they would hang out in more, but I don't know for sure. We're kind of in a funny area with those kinds of animals. So yeah.
Well, and the foxes too, they'll do scents that smell like skunks a lot of times. You haven't had any of your dogs ever get sprayed by anybody before?
No, I'm gonna knock on wood again.
Yeah, that's
I know we have those guys around.
Yeah. All right. Well, you said you wanted to. You went to school for journalism. Mm-hmm. Probably were smart the way the journalism business is these days. If not, maybe because newspapers are kind of dying and magazines are struggling these days and all that. So what motivated you beyond just obviously you as a journalist, you did write, decide to be a fiction author?
I grew up reading every book I could get my hands on, and I loved the fiction. I loved mystery. My mom and I would watch Murder, She Wrote, and I thought, oh, Angela Lansbury's so cool. Like, I want to be like her. Of course, I was only about 8 or 9 and not thinking about the fact that this little town had so many murders that maybe you don't want to live in Cabot Cove. But I just thought I love the character. And when I went into journalism, I wanted to write for a living. And it was starting to change. About the time I graduated, which was 2000, it was really starting to change and go down the, like you said, where we are now. It's more corporate owned. Newspapers are dying out. I just knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I would learn about, we would go out for college and report on stories. And I thought, oh, I want to come up with my own ending. I don't like the real life ending.
Right. And
so fiction provided that. I could sit down and play around with, oh, I want this person to live, or I want this person's going to die in my book, since I write murder mysteries and romantic suspense. So yeah, I really enjoy the fiction. It was interesting, actually. I saw on Netflix, there's the recent documentary on the JonBenet Ramsey case. And when the grand jury was meeting, that was around the time I was probably about a junior in college. And our professor sent us down to cover the grand jury, going on with JonBenet Ramsey. And I remember sitting there waiting and watching this van come out, and it was just the jurors, and that was it. And I said to the guy next to me, so we sat here for 2 hours to get that. And he said, yeah, welcome to journalism. And of course, that was a case that's still not solved. And we all wonder if it ever will be. And I think in fiction, we could take a story like that and create something and go ahead and solve it. And I love that part of fiction.
So who were some of the authors? You mentioned Angela Lansbury, but authors
Oh
that
yeah.
really inspired you that in that genre, or maybe even outside that genre?
Yeah, when I was growing up, the first ones I really read, and I still have all my books, including my mom's version of some of them, was the Black Stallion series by Walter Farley.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed those. I think the first mystery where I knew I was hooked was Mary Higgins Clark. I
Mm-hmm.
picked her up, I was probably like in middle school or maybe a freshman in high school, and read it, and I couldn't put it down. I thought, this is great. So I read a bunch of her books. So she was definitely a big influence. In fact, I was thinking recently I should go back and read some of hers. I haven't read them in a really long time. From there, James Patterson, Lee Child, Michael Connolly, a lot of those authors. And then I still love Lisa Gardner, Lisa Jackson, so as time went on, all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, there's this whole world out there with all these fantastic authors and too many books, so many books, so little time. Right. And but I was hooked on the genre. So
see,
yes.
you can see there, but I've got a bunch of Lee Child books there.
Oh, nice.
And Robert B. Parker was one of my big influences. I always enjoyed Robert Parker, and I've got a lot of Michael Connolly books there as well. And I had the thrill of meeting Andrew Child at BoucherCon. I don't know if you got a chance to talk to him, but I did. He was on a panel that I was in watching. I wasn't on the same panel of authors who were taking over for authors who'd no longer were writing series. So they had taken over, popular series. Mark Cameron was there. He did Jack Ryan, Reed Farrell Coleman, who I got to interview a few weeks ago on the show, which was great. He came on
nice.
did the Jesse Stone series for 5 or 6 books. After Michael Brandman had done it for a few episodes after, or a few books after Robert P. Parker passed away. But yeah, Andrew and Lee both live up in Wyoming, not too far from where you live, up 287 Tie Siding, if you know where Tie Siding is. And
I do. Yeah.
Little nothing town on 287 there. So
yeah.
But yeah, it was nice talking to him. But I didn't have the guts to ask Andrew to be on the show, so I talked to Reed and asked him, but I never did ask. I didn't even think about it when I was talking to him. So, do you think your brother would like to be on and stuff? But he was telling a story about how his brother told him that he didn't want to write because Lee's not going to write the series anymore. Andrew's taken over for him, so he was telling that story. But that was a fun thing. Did you get to meet any authors at BoucherCon and how often have you gone to BoucherCon? Is this the first time you've been there?
No, this was actually my third one.
Yeah.
So I went to the one in Minneapolis and in San Diego and in Nashville. I really enjoy it. It's always a lot of fun. And this year Harlan Coben was there, and so I got to meet him and had a book signed. Heather Graham, love Heather. Right. She's fantastic. And let's see, who else? I'm going to draw a blank right now thinking about it, but there's so many. There's so many. Yeah.
And they're all very nice. I mean, you always think about walking up to someone who seems to be very famous but they always seem to be very giving of their time and, oh, hi, how you doing? And, very friendly. And, they don't seem they're not very standoffish. You think like movie stars, being, I don't have the time for you. I don't want to do an autograph and stuff. And they always seem to be, unless they're headed to they have to be at a panel in 5 minutes or something like that. But they always seem to be great. And Michael Connolly is supposed to be the keynote next year in New Orleans. And I'm really trying to figure out a way to go because I would love to talk with Michael Connolly.
That would be amazing. I don't know if I'm going to make it to BoucherCon next year, but Left Coast Crime is in Denver, so hopefully we'll get to see. Will you be there?
I'm going to probably reserve for that since it's just downtown. I'm not big thrill about going downtown with parking and everything, but I'll do it. Hopefully you didn't go to Readers Take Denver this last year, which was a nightmare. I had done it the year before, which was downtown, and it was better handled that year. But because Reed Farrell Coleman said he was going to probably go, and after I was talking to him on the show, and he says, "Well, we'll have to have a beer." So I'm hoping he'll come, but I know there's a few authors that are going to be there, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of local authors going, hopefully, and
Yes.
hopefully some well-known. The lady, and I'm blanking on her name, that wrote the V.I. Wachowski
Oh,
Private
yes,
Eye
Sarah
series.
Paretsky.
Yeah, she's going to
Yeah.
be like the main guest, I guess, or number
Yeah.
one. And I was looking, I'm like, wow, I was amazed. It's like, those books are really old. They've been around a long time, and she's still writing them. She's got to be in her 70s, I think, or something like that, which
Yeah, I
is
would think so.
incredible that she's still writing that same series for so many years. All
It
I
is.
remember was a really bad movie that was done that didn't do very well with Kathleen Turner, I think. So
I think so. Oh, that's right. Yes. Yes, I remember that too. Yeah.
Well, enough about other authors. Let's talk about your book. So you have 3 books
Yes.
that I know about. At least I saw on your website, and
Yep.
I think that one was your first one, right?
This was my debut novel, Chasing Justice. It came out in 2022, and it's the first in the National Forest Canine series. And the books are all about Marine veteran Maya Thompson, who's a U.S. Forest Service law enforcement officer, and her Malinois, Juniper, obviously on the cover there.
Malinois. Looks like a Malinois. Malinois and Shepherds look very similar, but Malinois are usually a little smaller, but the face is always hard, and those ears very pronounced.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they are very similar breeds. And interestingly enough, they're now starting to cross the two, and they're sort of getting like this super awesome working dog, a law enforcement dog. So now there's one with the Larimer County Sheriff's Department. And I was looking at it and I was like, wait, is that a Malinois? Is that a Shepherd? And he said, oh, it's a cross.
Really?
Thought, oh, that's perfect. Yeah, and I guess he's a heck of a working dog. He does a really nice job. So anyways, so I chose a Malinois mainly because our trainer always had them. He trained for law enforcement, and I just love them. They're high energy. They kind of have a sense of humor. And I'm sure the Shepherds do too. I just was around the Malinois more. So that's why I went with the breed. And actually I met a real life, well, I haven't met him, but I was talking with a real life U.S. Forest Service law enforcement officer, and his canine was a Malinois, and pretty fun stories he had. But in my fictional books, they go out and solve crimes in a fictional national forest. I called it the Pinot Grande National Forest. Roughly, because I didn't want to worry about every, you know how it is, the river's in this spot and this lake is in this spot. I thought, I'm just going to make it up, and then that way I can.
So is it Colorado then?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. I sort of envision it up in the Roosevelt Arapahoe National Forest area for anyone who either knows the area or wants to get out a map. That's kind of where I envision this national forest. So in the first book, they have to solve the murder of Maya's best friend, and that's where she meets the undersheriff, Josh Colton, and he wants to help her, but she isn't certain if she can trust him. So, yeah.
It's a little bit of tension sparks there between them, a little love-hate relationship maybe. Yeah.
There is, yeah. It is categorized as a romantic suspense. So, So that's, yeah.
So how does he deal with the commands for the Malinois? Because I went to a citizens police academy here in Westminster, and they have Malinois. That's all they use. They get them from overseas. Yeah. Bring them in, train them, and incredible dogs. I mean, you just see those in. And I'm thinking the one thing that always crosses my mind is how stupid criminals are. And of course, you don't necessarily have to be smart to be a criminal, but how stupid they are that they think that they can get away from these dogs or beat them. I mean, they're incredible. I mean, they told me stories about the dogs, and they would send a dog in after the guy, and the guy would not come out. And it's like, that dog is going to get you. You either come out, or they're going to come out with their teeth on you. But they train them with Dutch commands usually. So how is your Malinois? Was he trained that way as well, or is his commands using English, or how does your ranger work with him?
That's a great question because I really debated it.
Yeah.
You hear a lot of different languages with the working dogs. And if
Mhm.
they're imported, they probably will either be trained in like Dutch or German are probably the most common languages.
Mhm.
You might hear French, Czech. But it was interesting in talking to our trainer, even when they're imported, unless they've already had previous training, he trains them in English. And I asked him, I said, well, why do you decide to do that? Because it really is up to the trainer.
Right.
And every trainer I've talked to says, well, it depends if they have commands they already know. Otherwise, people are starting more and more, at least in the US, to train them in English. And there's two reasons for that. One is if the officer, when you deploy a canine, you're in a very high stress situation. You don't deploy the dog unless you're dealing with someone pretty serious. They're on the use of force, they're kind of in between. I think they're considered, I'd have to ask an officer for sure, but I think they're considered a stronger use of force than like taser, but obviously below shooting someone.
Right.
So when they deploy the dog, you're usually in a very stressful situation. And what trainers were finding is the officers would go out, and when they were in that situation, because the commands weren't in their native language, they were having trouble like recalling what they needed to tell their dog to do.
Oh,
if it's not a language well, and you're in that situation, it's like, oh gosh. Now our trainer would always laugh, and he'd say, he had the funniest laugh, and he would say, yeah, but that dog just went and bit the guy anyways. They know what they're supposed to do. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure they did. The other reason he went with training the dogs in English is he said there's nothing better than with a criminal hearing the command, go get him. And he said, let me tell you what, when criminals hear that, then all of a sudden they might start, except for maybe the one you were being told about, but most of the time they'll start saying, no, I give up. Never mind. Don't send him. Of course, by that time you're kind of out of luck because the dog is going and they love the bite. They love taking bites. So they're going to go do it.
They're and I know that the officers say they warn them. It's like, we're going to send the dog in. You either come out or we're going to send a dog in again. And it's one of those situations where it's safer for the officer. That's why they use those dogs a lot of times. He was saying that, yes, the dogs can get hurt. And, they're valuable members, but it's better than a police officer getting hurt. So they're put in that situation, obviously, to, track down drugs and obviously criminals on the run and stuff. But I'm like, dog, nope. I mean, I've seen those dogs when they're training them, they wear those heavy padding on there and they can still feel that dog's jaw when it bites that. It's like, and I know at least in Westminster, they said for them, they didn't even have a release command. They don't do a release command. They just pull them off of them. That's all they do.
Wow.
That's what they told us. I'm like, yeah, no release command. Yep, and that takes a lot of flesh when you're pulling them off and stuff. So it's like, okay, yep.
It does. I have a friend who worked for our company for a long time, and she's a retired canine handler from, I believe, Fort Collins, and she had a black German Shepherd, and they were tracking a guy wanted for a homicide at night, and they ended up in the foothills. And she said the thing about her dog is you could almost just see his golden eyes, but not him because he was black.
Right.
And so it was nighttime. They were tracking this guy. And I think the guy realized what was happening, that this dog was on him. And the guy climbed a tree. And her dog, whose name was Eric, was sitting at the bottom of the tree, just staring up like, go ahead, come back down. And Dee said the guy was just sitting there going, I'll do anything you want if you just get that dog out of it. Like, okay, I give up. I'll come in. So, but she felt like it was also because he just was so spooky at night with his coloring and his eyes. And I said, hey, whatever works. But he loved taking a bite. And she said he was really bummed when the guy complied and she had to take him away. He didn't get to bite the guy, but yeah.
Well, yeah. Good thing his eyes weren't red, right? Then be like the
devil. Exactly.
That'd really be scary, right?
That would be, yeah.
Maybe put contacts on the dog, right? That'd be even more.
Oh, there you go.
might not like that much. And you did the training of the dogs. So that's one of the things they told us too, that usually when it was the drug training, that they would find the drugs and they just, when they find the drugs, they just sit there.
Yes.
Is that the way you train your dogs too? Is they just, as soon as they found them, they just sit and they stare right at wherever it is, and they don't leave until they're told to leave?
Yes. So that the sit is what's called a passive alert. Mm-hmm. When we first started out, we still had some active alert dogs. So those dogs would scratch.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, when they scratch, it can damage a lot of stuff.
Yes.
So the passive alert was nice, switching to that as dogs retired and we brought new dogs on, and we would work on them sitting and just staying on it. Boomer, my black lab, knew the toy was coming. So he was funny. He would stare and then look at me and look kind of back and forth. And I was always working with him. Like, I'm not going to give you the toy until you look at it. But right. he had this little, like you could see this little twitch going. But yeah, the active alert dogs, I was glad to get away from that. Although I remember Gracie, the dog in the photo with the 4 dogs together, she was very high energy and she was an active alert dog. And I always had to watch her that she wouldn't, destroy something. But I know one day she picked up an odor out in a parking lot, took me across the parking lot and went to this truck. And I'd made the mistake of letting the leash out too far. So by the time we got to the truck, she just went up to it and like that. And we had all these scratch marks. And I'm just sitting there going, well, maybe I should start calling a body shop and seeing what this is going to cost. Well, luckily, the school resource officer pulled up. He ran the plate and he said, oh, I think you're going to be okay. I don't think you're going to be paying for anything. And sure enough, I mean, the reason why she alerted that hard is we had all sorts of drugs and alcohol in the vehicle. It turned out the kid was selling it. And then he had a little business going at lunchtime where everyone could come out, sit in his truck, and they could drink or smoke whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
And so it was a strong odor, but I think she was our last active alert dog. I said, okay, enough. She
was solving crimes on her own, right? So yeah.
Exactly. She was, yeah.
All right. So your second book. So the books are all the same characters, right? It is a series, or are your books different characters in each one?
It is. This is a series, the National Forest Canine series. Okay. So book 2 is Hunting the Truth. Okay. And in this book, Maya and Juniper are back, and Josh too. Spoiler alert, I guess I should say, but from the first book. But in this book, they are working on solving the cold case murder of Maya's mother and proving that her grandmother was also murdered, and it all connected together. And so this one was a lot of fun to write because I did a lot of tracking work with the dog in this one and going back into the wilderness areas and things like that.
So in your books, do you see things through the dog's point of view, or is it all third person? How are you writing that your stories?
When there's dog work, I'm doing it through Maya's point of view. I don't have anything from the dog's point of view. Right. I know there's authors out there that do that. They do it really well. I think as a handler, I just couldn't go there because I'm probably seeing the dog work better through Maya's eyes and knowing what it feels like down the leash. And again, that body language and when they get in odor and catch a scent and really start going somewhere. I mean, just like I was saying with Gracie in the parking lot, like when she caught that odor, it's no different than if a dog is tracking. Their body language changes and you follow them and you trust that dog, and it's a lot of fun. So all of the dog work is done through Maya's point of view in the books, third person. Yeah.
So I have to ask you a question. Is Maya you then?
No. No, Maya's a lot braver than I am. No, Maya's definitely not me. She's definitely her own person. Yeah. I'd say when we're working the dogs, we probably have a lot of similarities. But otherwise, her character is definitely not me. She's a Marine veteran. She's feisty and not afraid to go out and go after someone. So yeah, she's really a fun character to write, because at the same time too, she can doubt herself at times. And so it's sort of this back and forth with her, and gaining confidence working a dog again. In Chasing Justice, the backstory is that she lost her military dog in Afghanistan due to handler error. And just so people know, I don't go into great detail with that. Another spoiler alert, no animals are going to get hurt or die in my books. I don't want that. I don't want to read that. So anyways, but she came back from Afghanistan and had sworn off working dogs again. And so in Chasing Justice, she is forced to take on working Juniper. And by hunting the truth, she's starting to get back into working the dogs. So she and I are very different in that way.
So this is a friend of mine. I haven't been getting too many comments lately, but at least got a comment. Chris there. Chris is I know from Wild Deadwood, and we were also killing Nashville, and she was a big winner. But yeah, she likes your books. Hopefully you'll buy them, Chris.
Yeah.
She lives in South Dakota.
I think, Chris, we met at Killer Nashville. I think we shared an Uber to the airport. So.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, not last year, but the year before. So it's good to see you again.
Yes. Yeah. Chris is. She didn't go she wasn't able to go last year. She had her appendix come out on her last year, if I remember right. No, that was Deadwood. Sorry. That was Deadwood. She couldn't go to Deadwood this year because she had her appendix out.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, yikes. I'm glad you're better, Chris, and it's good to see you again.
Yes, she was a big winner at Killing Nashville 3 years ago. The first year that I won one of my awards. She won best overall book and best nonfiction. So she was a big winner, and I know she was in shock that night, as was I. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, but thanks, Chris. Appreciate you getting on tonight. And
yeah, thank you so much.
And so you've got Chasing Justice, you've got Hunting the Truth, and then you have a new book which just came out this year, right?
It did. It came out in March, and that's Killer Secrets. This one was a lot of fun to write because I see the mountains as a character. From living here in Colorado, that it's, things can happen up in the mountains. So in Killer Secrets, I have an avalanche that cascades down a mountainside and reveals the dumping grounds of a serial killer. And Maya and Juniper have to go figure out who it is and solve the crimes. And I just really enjoyed, the mountains became more of a character in this one, I think, out of all of them, possibly. So it was a lot of fun. And as you know, we're heading into avalanche season this time of year on up in the high country. It can get really unstable. So it was fun to learn more about those as well.
So what is the altitude of this area, that your fictional area that you created? You got any 14ers in that area?
No, I went ahead and put Longs and Meeker in Chasing Justice. So I guess Longs Peak would be the 14er.
Yeah.
I haven't had a lot of 14ers, but they're mentioned here and there, and it would be fun actually to do something with a 14er. That would be a lot of fun. I've never hiked one. Have you? I haven't made it to the top.
We walked up the trail a little bit when we got to the top of there at Rocky Mountain National Park, walked up a couple of trails up pretty high, and that's 12,000 feet. And it was tough. You're getting that high. And then we've been at Evans a couple times up there and walked around up there, and that one's even higher. That's really tough up there. You get out of breath really quick. I'm definitely too old now. When I was younger, I could do it probably a lot better, but not these days.
Yeah, if I could go back in time in my younger years, I definitely would have done it. It would be a lot of fun to have done like a Longs Peak climb or something. But it's dangerous too. I mean, you have to be really careful. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, and these people that hike in the wintertime, and like you said, you never know. The weather changes so fast up there, and it can come over the hill and you don't even know it, and it's just on you. And
yeah, Yeah. Yeah. The avalanche was really fascinating. Again, the Forest Service officer that I've connected with that helps me with my research, he was saying they're having more avalanche incidents, and no one can really decide, is it because more people are going into the backcountry, or is it because we're having, with the warmer temperatures and whatnot, is the snow more unstable? It was an interesting discussion with him. So, yeah.
So you've the book 3. So I'm assuming you're working on book 4.
Yes, I'm actually writing it. Like, I'm halfway through it right now, and
I'd be impressed if you said you're writing it while you're talking to me. That would be really
I
good.
was going to
You do
say,
it split brain. That's amazing.
I wish I could. Yeah, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? So no, I am working on it, and it's coming along. It's going to be set in March, and I'm getting the storyline worked out. But Josh, his past is going to come into this story a little bit more. He's from Chicago. He has his own past demons. He moved out to Colorado for reasons. And so a case from his past is coming in and coming into play. And he's going to maybe be framed for murder. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Oh, you'll tell us now. That's okay. Well,
that's right.
You can get,
yeah.
You want people to read the book. You can't give away the whole thing, right? So
no, you can't. You can't. And I also am under contract for a 5th book. So that one will be set in July. And I think that one's going to have a forest fire. I think that'll be the kind of back to the mountains as their own setting. And, having lived with these fires recently, they are quite they're their own monster, right? So
oh yeah, I mean, I'm amazed and you'll have to do a lot of research on the firefighters too, because just going in there and fighting those fires in that environment, the physical strain,
yes,
walking through this rocky terrain, and it's I applaud people that do that. Thank you so much for doing it. It's just like people in the military, going and put their lives on the line. These guys are, and I'm sure they're not paid very well either.
Yeah.
We're not getting CEO money here. This is it's pretty poor, and they're working nonstop. I know. Oh, where was it last year? Was it when we were in South Dakota? I think it was when we were in South Dakota for the Wild Deadwood Reeds. We were touristing, and there was a truck there, and there was people there, and they were firefighters, and they were there taking a break, and they were all climbing into their trucks, heading on to their next job somewhere. But you can see all the equipment they had. All, they got sleeping bags and stuff. I mean, they're living in the outdoors. Is what they're doing, and they don't get to stay in hotels while they're doing that work. So
no, big thank you. They are all heroes. I mean, all first responders, all of them, and military, but these guys who fight the fires, like you said, the Alexander Mountain fire was near us, and the sort of base camp was near my sister-in-law's house, and we drove by on our way to head over there for a barbecue or something, and they were all sleeping out in tents. I mean, all the firefighters, you're absolutely right. I don't think people realize they are not staying in hotels and they're not, they are sleeping out in tents. They are working their hearts out, and they do so much to save homes and lives. And so, very, very grateful to them.
Yeah. They probably don't get showers very often either. It's like
it might be good they're outside. That's right.
Every day, just about. You don't get a big suitcase carried with. So you mentioned you're under contract. You're obviously more traditionally published. So
I am. I have gone the traditional route. I've been very happy with it. I looked into both ways, self-publishing versus traditional publishing. And I just thought, I'm going to try the traditional route first. And it took. I love my agent. I would tell anyone who wanted to go traditionally, you need a really good agent, because things come up and behind the scenes. And my agent, Ella Marie Shoup with Bel Castro, she's fantastic. I can email her with a question or just whatever, and she helps me out. She's put in so many hours. So I have a great agent, and I'm contracted with Carina Press, and then they're an imprint of Harlequin. And then actually I have yet another book coming out next year in a different series, but it still has a canine. and that's with the Harlequin Romantic Suspense line. And I'm excited about that one. It's a little different. It's more on the romance side, but still had a fun mystery. And this time I had a FBI crisis canine, which they are essentially therapy dogs, but the FBI now has at least 2 of them that I know of. And they help victims and people who have survived like mass shootings, that sort of thing. And they come in and they're more therapy dogs. So I had a fun time incorporating that dog in. And that's Boomer and Willow there.
Yeah, because you said this was a Harlequin photo shoot is what it was, one of the pictures you sent me.
Yeah. So Harlequin it was really fun. They reached out and asked me.
That's another one.
I think it was, there we go. Yeah, we had the 75th anniversary this past September. So I was up there for that. And then the photo shoot was Harlequin asked if I'd be interested with Boomer and Willow in doing a video on it. I'm going to get the title wrong, but it's along the lines of, if you get on YouTube and type in like Harlequin, 5 things you've always wanted to know about working dogs. We did about I can't remember how long it was, but a video where Boomer and Willow were working and kind of showing off their skills, and then promoting some of the books in the canine line. So Harlequin's a great publisher to work with. They've been fantastic. And I've really enjoyed everything. So
I usually ask everybody this: are you a plotter or a pantster?
I am definitely a plotter.
So you get everything all kind of ironed out before you even start writing.
Mm-hmm. I do. And I think for me, the reason why I do that, and I think for everyone, it just depends on how your brain works. But I am almost very ADD, and it's like, oh, here's a scene, but it goes towards the end. And here's a scene, but it goes towards the beginning. And here's a scene, but I think it'll be in the middle. And so I actually use the program plotter, and I can move things around, and I can kind of figure out. And I think if I didn't do that, the book would come out very disjointed. Actually, I know it would, because back when I was just starting out, I outlined a book and I thought, oh, I'm going to try pantsing my next one. And I hit about page 300 and I was like, I have no idea what this is about. Like, I don't even know what's going to happen. So that book went in the sock drawer, so to speak, and I went back to plotting. Now I mean, really, everyone has to find their own way. I know, like Lee Child, he's a total pantser.
So am I.
Are you? Yeah, I admire it.
Charles Coleman, when I talk to him, he's like, yes, all the way. He says, plotters, blah. He's but yeah, you got to find what works for you, and that works for you. That one you said you put away, do you ever have thoughts of pulling it back out and trying to plot it and start all over with it, or is that one permanently just on the shelf forevermore?
No, that one kind of, although the storyline's very different, I have some ideas with it, and I think someday it will come back out. And it was funny, I thought the other day, it would be fun to try pantsing a novel again. Mm-hmm. Maybe not one I'm under deadline for, because when you're under deadline, you just need to know you got what you need, and you need to get it written. But I thought it would be kind of fun to maybe try pantsing again and see, now that I have more experience. And the program I write in is called Dabble, and you can move scenes and chapters around in it as well. So, but I think for me, like I said, I'm just like, oh, this scene's going to be down here. And so I feel like I have to lay it all out and then I can go write. So yeah, it's really interesting. That's great that you can pants. I mean, that's,
well,
I'm in awe.
Yeah. Well, I've talked about it all the time. It says, for me, the characters are kind of just sitting there in my back head, and a lot of them are even talking to me sometimes. So I don't know if you get that as well too, where your characters are, you feel like the characters kind of are a part of you and running through you, and maybe even sitting, looking over your shoulder. But mine sometimes are like, no, I don't like that scene. You need to change that a little bit, or I need to be more fleshed out, or whatever. It's just like the director in a movie, the actor is looking over his shoulder, going, "Oh, I don't like it that way." So.
No, I've had that, and even though I outline, I mean, outlines can change, or little things come up. I was writing this morning, and a little segment came up and I thought, oh, that could be an interesting short story. I don't know if it'll make the final cut for this manuscript, but it has made the cut into like, oh, maybe this will be a short story or something I'll write about. So, yeah.
So is there a book you've wanted to write that you haven't written or you're thinking about writing? I know you mentioned the Harlequin one, which is a little bit different, but is there something that you've always wanted to write and you just haven't written yet? Maybe in a different genre.
I don't know about a different genre. I always seem to head back into that suspense. The romantic suspense has been fun. I think if I slightly changed, it would just be a stronger mystery suspense kind of genre. I have a book, and I think it would be a standalone, and it was from a dream I had, and it's just still very vivid. And it's something that I think someday I'll come back to write. It doesn't have a dog. So I'm like, oh, what do you do with that? No, I'm just kidding. But no, it was a dream I had and I woke up and it was so real. And I was just like, oh, someday this has to be a book. So I think I will end up writing that. And
well, maybe it'll be a horse.
It could be. Yeah, actually, I have an idea with a horse as well. So yeah, I do. I have a book idea with that. So I have a lot of ideas. I'm not worried about ideas. Mostly it's just getting the time to write. So
yeah, well, yeah. And those ideas, when you get those ideas, do you make notations? Do you write them down? I've got my little notebook here and I'm always jotting stuff down while I'm editing or whatever, or new ideas come to your head. You have a little notebook like that? You keep a track of a lot of things?
I do. I have a little notebook. My mother-in-law gave it to me last year for my birthday, and it's cute. It says on it, "Bodies buried in the woods." And those bodies buried in the woods are my story ideas. So I just jot things down, and it sounds like you're the same way, that it's just a lot of fun. I mean, you're always thinking, or you go out and you run into someone or you see something and you're always kind of picking up little things to add in.
Yeah. I mean, there's stories out there just waiting to be written. I mean, I probably you go down to downtown Denver and just watch people walking by and you'd probably come up with hundreds of ideas every day, or even in the mall or something where,
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So do you write every day? Are you a real dedicated writer? Obviously, when you're under a contract, you kind of have to be pretty dedicated.
Yeah. I, for the most part, I try to write something every day. And right now, as I head into my deadline, I'm writing a lot more every day. And so it kind of ebbs and flows, if you're editing or whatever, but I'm always trying to get something written down. And if I'm not writing, then I want to be reading or doing something that kind of keeps that imagination going,
Yeah, sure. So are any of your characters based on real people,
No, I think the only characters that are based on anything real are the dogs.
Yeah.
The Malinois Juniper in the National Forest Canine series is definitely based off of some of the Malinois I met at our trainers in Oklahoma. And like I said, they're interesting dogs. You obviously saw them in action, so the intensity and how smart they are, and they kind of have a little sense of humor in there too. But they're just really cool dogs. And then in the newest book, Colorado Canine Rescue, the one that's coming out in September of 25 with the Harlequin Romantic Suspense, that dog is definitely Boomer. Yeah. My black lab, he was a great drug dog, but I think he missed his calling as a therapy dog because he's almost 80 pounds and he wants to sit on your lap. And if you're upset, he's the first one over there to, oh, it's okay. And right. So that dog, there's a black lab in that named Mocha, and he's definitely based off of Boomer. As far as the people, the characters for me, I don't know about you, Randy, but for me, they really are just develop into their own people. It's almost like they're really out there. But they're not, I don't usually base them off of anyone. So.
Well, they say, when you don't like somebody, you put them in a book and kill them off, right? As when you write murder suspense and all that and stuff.
Okay, well, some of the murder victims, all right, I suppose they could be based off.
So Chris was asking, who do you like to read? Chris got on a little bit later, but
yeah. Oh gosh, so many favorite authors. As far as canine, obviously Margaret Mitsushima is one of my favorites, and she, like you mentioned, she and I are also very good friends. Mm-hmm. For canine books, Jeffrey Burton, Barbara Nicholas has some great books. Canine
I'm going to interview her in January, so yes.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, Barbara's great, and she has a new book coming out now. Mm-hmm. She doesn't write with the canines anymore, but I'm really looking forward to reading her new book. I think it's called The Drowning Game. I'm still a big Lisa Jackson fan. I'm trying to think. I'm sitting there going, Mark Cameron, who we talked about, he was at BoucherCon. Yep. Really enjoy his Arliss Cutter series. Gosh, there's so many great books. I'm trying to visualize my reading shelf right now. Harlan Coben, I think I mentioned him earlier. Obviously, Michael Connelly, Lee Child, Lisa Gardner. I have some Sandra Brown books. So, yeah, a lot of different authors. CJ Box, I really enjoy CJ. His books are fun too. So
all the events I go to, it seems like most of the readers I talk to, CJ Box comes up. They always say CJ Box.
Yeah. Alex Cava is another great thriller writer who has a canine series. So Chris met Mark. He is awesome. He's super nice.
Yeah. She said they're all her faves as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I always ask everybody this, bringing life to characters is the name of the show. What is it you look for? What is it you try to do to develop your characters, to bring them to life so they're flesh and blood and people love and care about them, or hate in some cases as well, depending on if you got a good bad guy, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a character in Killer Secrets that everyone was like, oh my God, I hated her. And I thought, well, I got her right then.
That's always, honestly, you always like that. I mean, people sit there and say, wow, that character is like, I just hated that son of a gun. Why didn't you kill him off? Or, well, I want to bring him back for another book maybe or whatever, right? So
exactly. Yeah. It was really funny because she brought out a lot of emotion in people. And I think when you see that, when people have emotion about a character, you got it right. Mm-hmm. I think as far as developing a character, I just try to think about their goals, their motivations, and why they're doing what they're doing. And if they're a bad guy, like trying to give them a little bit of area of like, you go, well, okay, I wouldn't go out and kill someone. But I understand why that person killed that person. If there's an understanding, if there's kind of that, I took a class from Grant Blackwood and he called it the universal, where you understand like, oh, I get what that character's feeling because I had this in my own life or this experience. And so it kind of taps into that feeling. And then I'm also always trying to
lead for them a little bit, I can see. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't cut them up into pieces, but I can understand.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was hard with my serial killer because it's hard to give someone a really good reason to go out and kill multiple people. So that was kind of tough. But I think also for any character, you're looking at the world through their eyes and you're trying to stop and say, okay, if this person is a canine handler, I walk into a room and I'm like, oh, I would have my dog check there and I would get their nose there and there's the airflow and there's the vents and we would shut you're always thinking like airflow and all these things. And, but if I walked into the room and I was a bomb squad expert, now I'm looking at that room differently. Or if I walked into the room and I was at an event where I'm a serial killer and I'm going to choose someone, now I'm looking at that room differently. So I think anytime you can kind of really step into those shoes and understand the motivation of the character and how they're seeing the world around them, then I think you can bring those characters to life. And And like I said, when I get reviews where someone's like, "Oh, I hated that character," or "I love that character," or then I know I'm doing it right. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And do you try to flesh out the character in your plotting when you're plotting in advance, or does it kind of develop as you're writing it?
That is something I definitely allow to develop as I'm writing.
Mhm.
The plotting is sort of the really main points where, like, okay, here's the inciting incident, and then this is going to happen, and I know I need to get to this, or I know I want this to happen. But how those characters react to that really starts developing when I write the story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they start to then they start to take over and speak to you, right? And talk to
They
you.
do. They
We're a
do.
little haunted by our characters sometimes. So
We are. I know. I
I
hear
know when I
voices in
did
my
my
head
serial
too.
killer book, and I've actually had two. Um, I had my private eye series is written first person, but the serial killer books I had chapters where it was dealing with the serial killer through his eyes and stuff, and I couldn't sleep. When that chapter
Yeah.
was in my head, I had to get up in the middle of the night and write it, get it out of my head, and then I could go back to sleep. I was fine, but I was putting
Yeah.
myself in that serial killer's shoes
Yeah.
for a short time. Fortunately, I didn't require any therapy or drugs afterwards to
That's
keep those
good.
crazy thoughts out of my head. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, they do. They start living there. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if I've ever had to get up in the middle of the night to write something, but I've woken up and thought of, I have a little notebook. I'll keep track of little notes, but
yeah. For me, I go to bed at night, and whatever the next chapter is sometimes rolling through my head. And then when I wake up, if I go to sleep, I wake up in the morning. It's like, okay, what was that? What was that idea I had again? Was
exactly.
that a good idea or not? So, I probably should keep the notebook next to the bed so I can write those things down. Since not as much space up here to store things as there used to be. So what advice do you give aspiring authors? I always ask people that too. My advice is always don't do it unless you're really insane. But maybe your advice is better than mine. So
Well, you definitely have to be a little nuts to want to
yeah,
go out here and do this, but it's a lot of fun. If you really love it, just keep going and just keep working at it and stop worrying about this or that. Just go out, write, sit down every day and write. And if you really enjoy it, just keep doing it and find your own path. It's funny. You hear people say, self-publishing versus traditional publishing versus this or that. And I'm like, you just have to find your own path and what works best for you. And it can change. I mean,
yeah.
if I write a book that my agent doesn't feel like she can sell, I have no problem self-publishing it. So, I will always give her the option to sell it first, obviously, but things can change. So be open, be flexible, go out and learn, meet people, but just enjoy the process. It's a lot of fun.
So what events do you got coming up? You mentioned Left Coast Crimes coming to Denver. I think it's in March.
It is. Right now that's the only one I've planned. I have to have some hip surgery. I tore a labrum. I guess it's the cartilage in your hip. And so if you guys see me at Left Coast Crime with a cane or something, that's why. I haven't aged that much. But
Is that from riding the horse?
That is a horse injury.
A little bit hard on the hips there, obviously.
Yeah. Actually, this one was from. I'm pretty certain it happened when I got bucked off a horse.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, so it's been a while, but we finally figured out what was going on. So with that, I haven't really committed to anything else yet. I just don't know. I need to see how it heals before I can fly and that kind of stuff. So I haven't, but I am looking ahead to Calgary 2026 with VoucherCon.
Well, my wife was talking about that too. She says, I want to go to Canada. So we got to get I don't have a passport, so I got to get a passport, but it's a little quicker than it used to be. Yeah, but Calgary, she was the same thing. And she was already looking at flights. She's going, we could book a flight now. It's like $200 and some to Calgary.
Is it really? Oh,
well, she was looking at that. I guess it's because it's so far in advance, maybe, but
maybe so.
That's pretty cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have to talk with her and find out where
Yeah.
she's from.
Yeah. I don't remember I think it was United too. I think it was United.
Okay.
And then like
Yeah.
United usually is fairly expensive. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe she was on one of those goofy sites or something that
Maybe so. Who knows? Hey, it works. It works because
Yeah, but no, that was one. Yeah, she wants to go to too. So we might do that as well. So she's busy with a big project right now. So she usually travels with me a lot of times when I do author events because she's the more robust person when it comes to crowds than I am, though I've gotten better through the years. And what was your feeling about your con there at the Gaylord? What was your thoughts? Because the other authors I've been interviewing, we were talking about that. It was such a huge place for that event to be held.
It was a fascinating venue, really.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I did bring tennis shoes. Usually I try to wear dress shoes, and my husband had been to a Gaylord before. I never had, and he said, wear comfortable shoes. Don't worry about what they look like. So I was really glad I had that advice because it was a lot of walking. Although the very last day, I finally found the shortcut from my room up to the conference. I realized I'd been going the long way the whole time, but hey, at least I got my steps in. So, but it was fine. I mean, it's really been interesting. It was different from the ones that were at a hotel because at the hotels, you're a little more with everyone, like at the bars, in the evening or whatever. You're kind of there, but the Gaylord was a little more spread out, so it was interesting.
It was like its own city, and there were a lot of other events going on too. You were passing people with lanyards going this back and forth all over.
Yeah. It was huge. So,
and expensive.
Yes, it was. It really was. The only nice thing is it's a Marriott, so I got my points.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, we were like, parking was $35 a day, and it was like, oh my God. We ended up parking in the mall and then walking over because we weren't staying there because we drove our RV out because we also went to Killer Nashville the weekend before. And and that, of course, it happened to be like the hottest 3 days in Nashville that year. It was over 100 degrees.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a horribly long walk, but in 100 and some degrees and that humidity, that was a little tough for an older guy like me. And the and
Coloradoans
used to Colorado dry air, and stuff.
So
had to rock, and we had to stop, find a shady spot, just catch our breath for a second, and then keep going and stuff. But, the cost was parking, and it was funny. It was $35 a day if you weren't staying there, and I think it was a little bit cheaper or whatever. And but it wasn't even, you could leave and come back that day, and still you had to pay again. So
did you really? I didn't know that.
Come back that same day, it was another $35. Which,
oh my gosh,
somebody's printing money there. Somebody was getting rich off of that event. So
yeah, definitely.
It was. On your website, there's a few awards you've won. We're getting down here a little bit in time, but there's a few awards you've won through the years. You can brag about yourself a little bit, to pat yourself on the back. It's always nice to be recognized. And I'll throw up your 3 books again so people can see the series. But
I've been really lucky. Chasing Justice and Hunting the Truth were both Silver Falchion finalists. Hunting the Truth was actually just recently announced the PenCraft 2024 Book of the Year for fiction. I was really excited about that. Yeah, that was very exciting. It was also a Colorado Authors League finalist in the mystery law enforcement category. And so they've both done really well. And Killer Secrets, I'm just now entering into everything. So we'll see what it does.
Are you a member of the Colorado Authors League then, obviously?
I am. I really enjoy the Colorado's Authors League. And then locally, the Rocky Mountain chapter of Mystery Writers of America and the Colorado chapter of Sisters in Crime. I highly recommend all those organizations. They're great.
Yeah, but I'm in Cal, and I need to get in the Rocky Mountain. I was in Sisters in Crime for a little while. I don't know. I felt weird. They told me Sisters in Crime, but you don't have to be a woman, they said. So you could be a man. And I'm like, okay.
You're a mister. We call you misters. Sisters and misters.
So it was So it was interesting. So, and
Yeah.
then your website, lots of good stuff on your website. It looks like you have a newsletter and
I do. Yeah. So, yeah, my website has all the links to social media where you can follow me. The newsletter comes out once a month towards the end of the month. If you sign up for it, you can get my free ebook called Working Tales, the Stories Behind the Canines. They're just little short stories about my time working the dogs, some of my experiences. So you can download that for free. And my website has book information and book buying information, and pretty much anything you want to know is on there. So
I may have to sign up and get the download because my new series is also going to have a canine in it. So
fantastic!
So I'm in the process of editing it now.
Oh, nice.
I might have to get your ideas on how I got the dog. So the dog is not the central character in the series, but we came up with this logo so far.
Oh, I love it.
We're going to add some stuff around the outside, but my designer's working on the cover right now too. So.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic.
But actually it's a little bit of the idea came from my wife. So I have to give her a little bit of credit for this new series. So
Awesome.
I have to share the royalties with her now. So
well deserved, I'm sure. Tell her I look forward to reading it.
Yeah, we hope there's royalties at least and stuff. So
yes, definitely.
Well, I'll have to, and I have authors. I do a feature author every month in my newsletter, so I'm going to reach out to you here, and I've got someone covered for January, but maybe my February I'll put you in my newsletter and have you write a little bit about yourself in there and throw a couple pictures and book links and stuff, and maybe you'll get a little traction. But yeah, I always like to do that because there's so many great books out there. I wish I had time to read them all myself. I know my wife is reading your series now. I don't know if she's completed yet or not, but she's been enjoying it greatly. She was talking. I told her she's gonna have you as a guest on, so she's like, "Oh, cool, great."
Oh, awesome. Well, tell her hello, and I also do a giveaway every month in my newsletter to try to promote another author. So I want to talk with you about that too. We'll catch up with that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do that. So, okay. Well, anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to plug?
No, I think we covered it all. If there's any questions or someone wants to, I'm always open to people reaching out. So.
Yeah. I mean, Kathleen was great. I know talking to her at BoucherCon, and we talked to lots of people, but, it was great meeting you there. It was always nice, and I imagine, I don't remember if my wife was the one that talked to you first. She is she walks up to everybody, and it's no big deal to her. And or whether you and I connected somehow beforehand, I don't remember for sure. There were so many people we talked to, but I know I enjoyed talking with you and seeing you at the event, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Good luck with the next book as well. Hitting those deadlines.
Thanks.
No pressure, right?
Right. Exactly.
Being independent like me, I don't have any pressure. So other than the internal pressure, or sometimes I get some fans, I wish you could write faster.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot too. It's like, I could put out crappy stuff if you want. I could
exactly.
5 books a year, and they might not be very good, but anyway, so
exactly.
But great. Thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate it. It was great talking with you again. Good luck with your surgery. Is it going to be before Left Coast?
It will be before. I figured I could do it and be okay for that. And like I say, it's not a bad surgery. It's just a long recovery. So
yeah, well, and do the physical therapy. Listen what you talked. I went through. I was in a motorcycle accident 8 years ago, and I had to put my knee back together and stuff. And I was had a walker for a while, and I could never use crutches. I don't know why I could never figure out crutches. I had a walker, then cane and stuff, and it was 6 months of physical therapy or so until the insurance wouldn't pay for it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what we get for having fun, but
That's right. So, All right. Well, great. Well, thank you, Kathleen. Great seeing you again. Take care, and hopefully we'll connect again about the newsletters, and we'll see you at Left Coast Crime.
Sounds great. You have a good night.
Yep, you too.
All right. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching tonight. Appreciate it. Enjoyed talking with Kathleen. I've got one more event, and then I'm done for this year, thankfully. I'm tired. Where is it? I'm going to be in Milliken. Wow, Milliken, Colorado. That's way out there. But it's a little craft fair that's held, and I had some other vendors who did it last year, and they said did really well, drew a lot of people. But last chance for anyone wanting to come and buy books. I did really well at Bear Creek High School last week. It's the best event I've done all year, which some of them haven't been very good. So, but that'll be it. And then I've got Mary, dang, I always hate this when I do this. Mary Calicoa is going to be my guest on December 30th, and we're going to have Barbara Nicholas. I think it's January 2nd, and because her new book comes out January 1st, so it'll be fun talking with her. And I've met her at a couple of authors. I actually met her the same place I met Margaret at the library years and years ago. So great. But thanks everyone for being on. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everyone. And we'll see you afterwards on the next episode. Bye. And